Imagine you're high up in the air, casually gliding above the blue waters of the Atlantic, and bam, your plane starts to shake. And just as you feel the altitude shoot down, you wonder if there's a way to land safely in a place like the ocean. Turns out, there is. I mean, it might cost a lot, but aircraft carriers are not just killing machines. They are also floating runways. And unlike on land, the flight deck on a carrier only has 500 feet of runway space. Yeah, not exactly ideal for the kind of heavy, high-speed jets we have in the US Army. During a war, these jets can be shot by the enemy and need to top up on fuel. So they'll often need to land quickly and safely in the middle of nowhere and miles away from an actual airport. But before we let the mind-boggling physics kick in, let's see how planes land on the deck under normal circumstances. Tailhooks, arresting cables, and barricades. These three things work in sync to slow down a plane. Remember, landing on a carrier is hard as it is. Thanks to the high speed and heavy weight of the plane, plus the limited space it has to land, we are running a pretty tight ship here. To pull off this incredible trick, the pilot needs to touch the deck at the right angle. The speed needs to be just right. Wind speed and direction need to be in its favor. And of course, it's always good to have enough fuel in case the plane fails to land the first time and needs another round. You see, planes are fitted with retractable hooks that can attach to wires on the deck. These hooks are located on a plane's nose gear, a T-bar that looks into the catapult's shuttle and pulls it down. When a plane lands, these sturdy cables made of high-tensile steel wire will help the plane slow down. For the pilot, the ultimate goal is to snag the tail hook on one of the 4 arresting wires stretching across the deck. The wires are attached to hydraulic cylinders right below deck on both ends. But hold on, give me a minute here. If Newton's law of conservation is right, you must be wondering where all this incredible amount of kinetic energy of the plane disappears. Well, an arresting gear system transfers all the energy into these hydraulic damping systems below the deck. New arresting systems, like the Mark 7, used by the US Navy, can stop a 50,000-pound aircraft traveling at 130 knots in just 2 seconds. Mind you, pilots only have a 300-foot-long deck to work with. So what will a pilot do if the tailhook failed to deploy right before landing? I mean, is the deck ever long enough for the plane to stop without the tailhook? Luckily, carriers have another trick up their sleeve: barricades. These large, 15-foot high or 4.6 meter nets can be quickly raised across the deck to catch a moving aircraft. These nylon net systems use a stainless steel base with a lightweight frame to manually decelerate a plane. Did you know that right before touching down, pilots push engines to full power instead of hitting the brakes? It might sound crazy, but here's the thing. If the hook doesn't catch any of the arresting wires, the plane still needs to be fast enough to take off another time and come around for another try. Random carrier trivia. In 2020, a J-15 fighter pilot, Zhang Jijian, found himself in the worst nightmare of his entire career, landing on the Shanghai, an aircraft carrier operated by the Chinese Army. This was supposed to be a routine drill, but it wasn't. As the screen in front of him flashed an abnormal failure right as he was about to touch down, Zhang knew he only had his own skill and experience to count on. But before you get too excited there about the Chinese fighter saving the day, remember, even though it is technically possible for your holiday flight to land on a carrier, in practice, civilian planes simply don't have the safety net of a floating runway wherever they go. Trust me, any pilot who's seen an aircraft in distress can tell you it's not easy. And if it's bad enough to force an emergency landing, chances are the plane won't fly again anyway. So there's no point destroying both the plane and a multi-billion-dollar carrier. But it seems the real reason is carriers actually spend most of their time in the open ocean and not near major population centers. So chances are most civilian planes, even those in distress, just won't be close enough to an aircraft carrier to land on one. Whether it's damaged landing gear or a tailhook malfunction, an emergency landing not only puts the pilot at risk, but it's also a major risk for the crew and equipment on the deck.
Not focused and you're not prepared, then you're not going to be doing this business for very long.
From signaling officers to dozens of sailors, this chaotic runway has safety nets around the side of the flight deck to protect the crew. But that's not it. Crew members are also equipped with float coats, or self-inflating jackets with flashing distress lights, and heavy-duty helmets. Not just that, but to protect the planes already on the deck, the flight deck is angled. Wondering why? Well, it may sound like a simple bit of geometry, but it has big implications. An angled runway gives returning planes more room and open air to speed up and take off again. Plus, an angled design also keeps carriers from damaging any planes not currently being used. With all these high costs and risks, it's no wonder that there are only 47 active aircraft carriers in use today. Remember, not every country can afford this baddie of the open seas, and while countries like China, Russia, France, and now India may have built their own formidable carriers, with 11 aircraft carriers, the US still boasts the highest number of carriers of any naval force in the world. If you want to learn more about how aircraft carriers work, check out our video in a link below. And since you're here, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss out.